Ralph Antonio Ra Castaldo had a very rare and cold birth. He has also had near death experiences. He's a plasma physics researcher, biblical archaeologist. He has done work on megalithic sites. He has taken photos of UFOs and had contacts with interdimensionals and extraterrestrials.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, I want to welcome you, Ralph, to the show.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate to be here. It's a pleasure.
Well, it's always fascinating to look at some of the very unusual experiences people have had that have launched them on their careers. And in your case, it goes all the way to your birth, this caul birth. So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I think that it's basically about 1 in 100,000 or more babies that are born this way. Basically, my mother's water never broke. I was born the regular way that babies are born, through the birth canal, but my mother's water never broke. So I was still wrapped in the amniotic sac, in the pod. And in fact, my birth was called an caul with a nuchal cord birth. So not only was I born in the caul still, in the amniotic sac, with the water still around me, the amniotic sac still around me, but I had the cord wrapped around my neck. Now, this is a very interesting birth because many people that are born this way experience hypersensitivities to light, vibration, sound, lucid dreams, all sorts of things. And after all the years of my research, I'm now 47 years old, so this happened in 1978. After all my years of research, I realized they may be referencing this, Dr. Salla, in ancient Egypt as the net of Neith, as the veil of Isis. Isis shown always covered in a veil and enveloped in a veil of her head and face. Now, some babies are born just with this veil over their head and face. Some babies are born completely enveloped in the caul. And that's what I was, completely enveloped in the caul. And back in the day, in Italian mysticism and all over the world, shaman were given the heads up by midwives about babies born this way, and babies were raised as seers. Now, from my 30 plus years of research, I've realized that nowadays doctors are most likely on the payroll, and covert agencies are given the heads up to babies being born this way. People are literally given a code at birth. This code in the hospital contains your blood type, specific characteristics about you and your lineage, and it's shopped out, sold out to people. And then this is used in star magic, right? The royal stars of the ancients, the north, south, and east and west watchers of the ritual circle, they are invoked during the equinox, during solstices, and the baby's life is coerced a certain direction through this star magic. And it's literally incredible. And it's been coveted. Babies born this way have been coveted for many, many, many hundreds of years, if not thousands.
So, yeah, there's all sorts of mystical gifts and abilities associated with these caul births. And it's very interesting what you said, that doctors are actually on the lookout for people born this way because of the gifts that they later on display in life. And you mentioned someone that was very interesting to me, and that is Dr. Puharich. So what's the connection between Dr. Puharich and your birth?
Very interesting. As I started to research my birth specifically and my doctor, right? So my birth doctor's name, and I don't mention this very often, was Eugene Levinson. He now passed away. Eugene Levinson was an Army intelligence officer who was also a medical doctor, same as Dr. Puharich. Both of them, when they retired to Westchester County, New York, where my family was residing. Both of them were friends, and both of them were Army intelligence officers that were also physicians for the Army, and then afterwards went into private practice, and both of them were living in Westchester County and friends. Now, Eugene Levinson, who was my birth doctor, he was an Army intelligence officer, and I often wondered if there was more to the story, because my siblings are 10 and 12 years older than me. My mom, because of the complications she had prior to with my siblings, didn't think she couldn't get pregnant anymore. So all of a sudden I come 10, 12 years later than my siblings. and it was a very interesting birth. Like, I was born in the call. So in my opinion, Levinson was connected to Army intelligence for sure. He was connected to it, and that information most likely was given out, and I had to take my power back in my later teens, early 20s, because I started to realize my life was being coerced in a certain way.
Yeah, I was fascinated by you saying that they're able to track births. The intel community is able to track these kinds of births, and I guess they're on the lookout for people born in this unusual way. And call, I guess it's a physiological thing that they can observe, and then they can report to the relevant authorities. Now, you had another kind of interesting connection, which I thought would be nice to explore, and that is with Giordano Bruno. So you want to tell us about that particular connection?
Yeah. So my godmother and Aunt Lori Bruno, she is a direct blood descendant. It's in our family, going back, many generations, to Giordano Bruno, who was, if people don't know, in the year 1600, he was burned at the stake for saying that the Earth is not the center of the universe. There are multiple suns with planetary systems around these suns, and there are more than just one sun with planetary systems. They're abundant throughout the universe, right? And he was kept in a dungeon for many years and then burned at the stake. Now, both myself and Lori feel this almost reincarnation type of energy within us. And my specific bloodline, I didn't just have a rare birth. People are born in my genetic background this way, in my family line. Not always. It sometimes skips generations. And those that are born carry a certain knowledge. And my family in Italy are specifically called the Tanara, right? These are mystics that hold the stellar mysteries within their DNA. They have passed down oral traditions and oral stories along the Veyas, we call them. These are fireside, chats, basically, that we have during solstices and equinox. We call them the Ember Days. And these are where the wars of the gods take place, the astral wars take place, which we can get into. And Giordano Bruno was one of these people. Right? He was one of these people holding the stellar mysteries within his DNA that has been passed down for generations and generations and relayed to people through mythological stories, right? And oral traditions. So I do feel like I was born to be the torch carrier in my family for this generation, as bringing back the truth of our ancient ancestors that we lost.
Well, Giordano Bruno was definitely a hero of the Renaissance, and
Yes.
in terms of his encyclopedic knowledge on many topics, and he was the one also talking about extraterrestrial life at that time, in that early period, that he was familiar with it.
400 years after he was sacrificed, basically, by the church, my Aunt Lori, she received an apology letter from the Vatican. 400 years later, my Aunt Lori Bruno, she's like 85 now, 86. She's a world-renowned psychic as well. She's been featured on Coast to Coast AM, different places. She has a store in Salem, Magica, and she does psychic readings, and she's world-renowned. We both helped with cold cases, finding lost people before, things like this, and she's got powers as well when it comes to being able to tap into who you are as a person, your spiritual journey, and certain psychic imprints that she gets.
Now, you had a near-death experience early on in your life, so you want to tell us about that, and I think you also were taken by the military. So tell us how that happened.
Wow, yeah. So that's a big thing to get into. So first of all, my near-death experience. Like I said, I was born with some God-given gifts, right? And they've been Michael, to be honest, they've been a blessing and a curse my whole life, having certain things that come to me. So when I was a kid, when I was like spiritually charged up, what I mean by that is, like, say, even like if your mom, I come from a very traditional Italian family. So if my mom said it's 9 o'clock, you got to go to your room and go to sleep, shut the lights out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right. So if I was running around the house all charged up, energetically charged up, my mom says 9 o'clock, go to bed. I have to go in the room and shut the lights out and be on my bed. And sometimes that was a very scary and frightening time for me. I would sometimes hear auditory things, my name being called. Even sometimes I would see faces come out of the dark, and I thought I was having neurological problems at first as a child, until I realized about my family history and my birth and certain things like that. So me being a hyperactive kid, I was in martial arts, I was in sports, all of this stuff at a young age. So when my near death experience happened, I was playing pretty high level soccer for a 10-year-old child at the time. We call it travel soccer in New York here, where you play all year round, and they take the best kids from your county, and you have to try out for the team. Your parents have to pay for you to be on the team. And you know, I was part of the 1978 North Rockland Sting. That's what they called it, the town I was in. And we were the best kids from the county from my year of birth. And we were playing all the best kids from New York and New Jersey in the tri-state area. So we were playing this team that had a lot of Irish immigrants on it at the time. And it was like September, school just started. It was a Sunday. The field was cold and wet. And I was the most physical kid on my team. Most of my kids were like prima donna finesse type kids, and I was the most physical kid. And this was a very physical team we were playing. So me and this other kid were really going at it the whole game, scrapping with each other, slide tackling, elbowing, all this stuff. I was the sweeper, he was the center striker. So there came a point where he went to go shoot on the soccer net, and I jumped in front of him, and he kicked with all his might, and the ball and his foot hit me between the legs and the testicles. Right. So I was out on the field. They had cracked my cup protector that they have, like the plastic protector that we have to protect your testicles and your groin area. It cracked that in half. And I had also received a slight concussion hitting my head on the ground. So I was on the floor in pain. The ambulance was going to take too long. So my parents threw me in the car. We were on our way to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, Dr. Sala, you know, as a young guy, you know, I'm telling my father in the car, Dad, I got hit in the balls. I'll be fine in 20 minutes. You know how it is. I don't want to go to the hospital and take my pants down, blah, blah, blah. Right. So my dad, of course, goes, hey, Jenna, I think he's going to be all right. Maybe we should go home. Right. So we go home. Sunday night, I somehow fall asleep. Monday morning comes. The next morning, my mom makes me get on the bus. I'm not feeling well. My stomach's bothering me. I'm in pain. I don't remember anything else. They tell me that I get on the bus, somehow was walking to class, and I blacked out. The next thing I remember is waking up right before I was on the hospital table, right? So what had happened was a black tissue was forming in my left testicle. They had spun around each other now, and I blacked out. I guess it was cutting off oxygen, blood flow, whatever. And I probably was either going to lose my testicle or die or whatever. I had blacked out. They had to do an emergency operation, right? So, and it was just a godsend, because a nationally known physician, Dr. Barr, Barr, happened to be at the hospital doing another surgery at the time. So when he's ended up doing my surgery. So what I remember is right before I woke up on the hospital table, this is what I can best remember, because I've had blinking recollections of this my whole life. Now, mind you, this was 1988. So a long time ago. All right. I was 10 years old. So I remember hovering over my body on the operating table. I was in the same position as my body was in. I was watching them working on me on the operating table, right? My arms were out and my legs were out like I was giving birth, and they were operating on me. And I was hovering above it, I guess, in spirit, astral form, however you, out of body experience, however you want to describe it. I was literally hovering, and I was in the same position with my arms and legs as my body was on the operating table. I never left that position, right? And I'm hovering over my body. And I'm going to make this story sound a lot longer than it was, because altogether it was about 30 seconds probably of what I remember, right? So I was hovering over my body, and I remember a conscious choice I made, like, oh my God, that looks like a lot of pain. I don't want to go back to that type thing. As soon as I made that choice, a light that you can't even imagine surrounded me, a warmth, and it was alive. It was sentient, and it catapulted me like Google Earth, like almost like Carl Jung's story, right? And I got shot straight up like Superman, flying. And as I left Earth, I passed through this green sea of intelligence. It was alive. It sounded like a whale song. It sounded like bird song, and it was alive. And I passed through it. And as I passed through it, I'm hovering like this, looking down, still at Earth. And in front of me, now I'm above Earth, hovering like this in spirit form. In front of me, the best I could describe it is it sort of looked like when it looks like on a hot summer day and you see that mirage, that watery wave in the air that's transparent. It's like a water, you know what I mean? Like that watery wave. It's almost like a mirage on a hot summer day. It was like that in front of me, but tubular shaped. And I just intuitively merged into it. And as I merged into it, it was sentient. It was more vivid, more alive, more real than this reality can ever feel. It felt like all the knowledge of the universe was inside this whirling. It seemed like water, although I wasn't wet or anything like that. It was like a watery, liquidy type of flowing substance that I was in. Now, my best way I can describe this is that every fiber of my existence was being analyzed, weighed, judged. And in this watery substance, I was leveling myself out like I was the bubble in a carpenter's level. And I was leveling myself out in it. Right. And as soon as I leveled myself out, like I was the bubble in a carpenter's level, and I was completely straight in it, my arms were, I woke up on the operating table in that very same position. As soon as I leveled myself out in that watery substance, I woke up on the operating table just like that. And I was pissed because I was in pain. I didn't want to be here. I didn't understand what just happened to me. I was trying to ask them, and they were like, no, you were hallucinating. We had you you were dreaming. And I'm telling you, Michael, nobody can tell me a 10-year-old kid made that up, dreamt that experience. Now, that experience, I started having blinking, nightmarish recollections when I would eat afterwards. It has been the daily thoughts of my life. It has sent me down to become a senior undergraduate in plasma physics, over 30 years research in mythology and the afterlife, all sorts of research. I even when I'm at the grocery store, I have books with me while I'm waiting online because I'm reading, I'm researching, I'm writing. It's just been a passion of mine to understand where I was, who sent me there, and where I was going and why I came back. Right. And it's now, after almost 40 years since this happened, I now believe I was in a region of the night side of the magnetosphere, a dynamic whirling region of plasma that is the Hades of the afterlife. It's the Gehenna of Hebrew, the Duat of Egypt, right? It's where the light body has to cross when it leaves this world. It has to cross through that whirling vortex, dynamic region around our planet that life wouldn't exist without.
So how did the military get involved in this? I mean, you were taken around that time. I mean, 10 years old, you had this NDE. When did that happen?
So the military abduction type experience I had was when I was in my early 20s, and it was in 2001 in California. So it was 11 years later, something like that. Yeah. And man, it's a long story to get into that. So to make it really short is during my teenage years, I went through a lot of turmoil. I was a really smart kid. I have over 130 IQ. I did really good on my SATs. I did really good in school, really well in school. But I also had some issues. I had gone through a lot of trauma when I was a kid, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I was trying to run from some of the things I was experiencing and seeing telepathically, all sorts of things. So I had a little bit of problems when I was a kid. I was in a band. We were touring at certain points and different things. I'm a musician. I'm always a creator and creating. So some of my friends started to die from heroin overdoses when I was a teenager. So I started to get into similar issues with, my friends and family. And so I needed a change of life. So in 2001, ironically, 3 days before 9/11 happened here in New York, September 8th, 2001, I decided to tell my mom I was going to 7-Eleven. Instead, I got on a bus and went to Long Beach, California. I don't know what came over me. It was like some sort of spiritual mission that just came over me. I knew nobody in California, Dr. Sala, nobody. I literally went with my acoustic guitar on my back, the clothes I was wearing, and $50 left in my pocket after I bought the bus ticket. 3 nights and 4 days from the Port Authority, New York City, to 16th Avenue in Long Beach, California, right? And when I got there, I just started playing guitar on the street for money. Busking, they call it. And I did this for like 2 years out there. I ended up getting an apartment. But while I was out there, I went through After about 30 days of me being out there, I went through this spiritual awakening. No more partying, no more drugs, no more anything. I started uplifting people through my music, people on the street, everything. I was just starting to like really try to help people and use my creativity and my knowledge and things that I've accumulated to help people, right? Because I didn't want to see the struggle. Right? I lost some very important people to me. All sorts of things started. So I started playing my music and doing things, right? And so after about 30 days of me being there, I started to make like waves around the community. People started to pay attention to me, know me, and things like that, right? Then I started to go through this point of spiritual experiences, and there was a 3 days in a row where I had these spiritual experiences. The third day, somehow I became on the radar of the military, and they came and got me. Actually, the Long Beach Police Department handed me over to them as best as I can remember, because it was a really foggy thing. I was taken and probably drugged, and I was hit over the head at one point. So what I can remember, there was a 3-day period here. The first day, I think it was my grandmother's spirit that was protecting me. The first day where this started off, this spiritual experience, I was walking through the alleyways. It was a little after midnight, and I walked into a cloud of my dead grandmother's perfume. Dr. Sala, I swear to God, it was saturated me. It was in my hair. It was in my clothes. I even said Nani. That's what we called her, like in the alleyway, because it was all over me. And I think my grandmother came and was with me to help me make the decisions I needed to make in these vital situations that I was in. Because the very next night, I had an experience that is very similar to like what many people describe as the voodoo god Legba making a deal with the devil at the crossroads. Right. So very interesting here. So I told you, I was playing music in the street. There was this bum that I always used to see. He was a homeless man. He used to be in front of the Burger King in front of Long Beach and 3rd Avenue. There's a Burger King there. And he used to be like he used to carry like a basket, like he used to carry like for cans and stuff that he would pick up, like a basket with him, some kind of cart with him or something. And he was all scraggly, unshaven, really scraggly looking. And I've asked him several times, "Hey, you want some food or something?" And he would just growl at me. Ugh. All right. So why am I mentioning this guy? You're going to see. So the next night after my grandmother's perfume happened, now I stopped talking about these experiences many, many years ago, because I didn't want to be defined by my experiences. And I went through many, many years of research to be able to show some evidence of these existences. But so that night this happened, it was the night after my grandmother's perfume incident. I never played music at night on the streets like that. I was always doing it during the day, right? Because you can get in trouble. You could do it in the park for free during the day, like no problems. But if you have to do it in certain areas, you need a permit for busking. So something was coming over me. It was really late at night. Like I said, it was probably like 1 o'clock in the morning. Because I used to do a little work for this store called No Regrets at the time on 5th and Pine in Long Beach. So I was coming home from that area and cutting through the alleyways, and I was having this song in my head that I wanted to play. Like I wanted to write this song. So I went down to the park on 1st and Golden in Long Beach. It's a very mystical park. Has a lot of spiral Fibonacci sequence in the park. On the benches in the park, they have a lot of it's called the Loteria game in Mexican. It's sort of like the tarot, a lot of symbolic cards and stuff like that. And they had these cards on a lot of the benches. Very interesting park. So I went into this park, and I was leaning against the wall, sitting on the floor with my legs folded in front of me, like sort of like meditation, with my guitar on my lap. And I was leaning against the brick wall, and I started playing music. I was singing. I was pretty much in the park by myself. There was some homeless people sleeping on the side, but pretty much in the park by myself. Now, I didn't hear anybody walk up at the time, but because I had my eyes closed a little bit, all of a sudden I smelt the cigar. I opened my eyes, and the guy was standing so close to me that I couldn't see all the way up, because I would have had to bend my neck back. So I saw dress shoes and dress pants standing in front of me. So I figured some guy was about to pay me for playing. So I was continuing playing. Didn't look up to see who the man was until he started talking. When the man started talking, I simultaneously looked up. Now, what he was saying was, "I've seen you around, kid. I see you know how to take care of yourself, handle yourself, and I see you know how to play that thing really well," talking about my guitar. As he says that, I look up, and now, Michael, it's this homeless man that I always saw scraggly. And now he's clean shaven with his beard all nice and neat and his hair slicked back. And he's wearing like a nice suit. And he's saying, I've seen you around, kid. I see you could protect yourself really well. And I'm paraphrasing now because it's so long ago. And I see you know how to handle yourself and that you play that thing really well. Now I've come into some money. And I want you to come work for me, play at my club, blah, blah, blah. Basically telling me like I can have everything I've ever wanted. I just got to say yes type shit. Right. So as he's saying that, I don't know, because just my personality, I would have done most likely one of two things: chased him away, saying, "What are you, crazy? What, did you come into money for the night? Get out of here, you know," or like been like, "Where do I sign?" Because I needed it at the time. I was one step away from being homeless at this time, you know. So maybe it was my grandmother that came over me, but I'm very limber. I've been lifelong martial artist, you know, Muay Thai, wrestling. So like when I'm sitting on the floor with my guitar in my hands, I can just pop up like a cat without having to brace myself up. From sitting with my legs folded in front of me, I could just pop up. So I literally just popped up like a cat, holding my guitar, looking at him straight face to face. And I said, "Sir, thank you, but no thank you." And then I sat back down and started playing. I looked back up. Dr. Sala, his eyes turned an unnatural red, a glowing red, like anger, like a storm of red in his eyes. It just was brewing like a whirlwind of red. I saw brewing in his eyes, like unnatural red, glowing almost. All right. I looked up and I saw that anger red, and I just closed my eyes and started praying and playing. And when I looked back up, he was gone. Now, doesn't end there. Fast forward a couple of days, I passed the Burger King where he always would stand homeless in front. A couple of days later, I pass on the bus. I see him out in front of Burger King, standing there homeless again. I go, am I friggin' imagining things? Was this somebody that looked like him? Or what is going on? So I get off the bus and I start screaming, cursing, "You MFer, blah, blah, blah. What is wrong with you the other night? Blah, blah, blah." He doesn't know what I'm talking about. He growls at me. And I walk away and I said, "You know what? No, screw this." I go back. I said, "Dude, you see, it was you. Look at your face." His beard was all still nice and neatly trimmed. Right. And he starts feeling his face in confusion as I'm saying that, like he didn't understand. And his face was cleanly shaven. Now, I walked away, never got any answers with that, but I don't know how to explain it. Was some kind of demonic entity taking over the homeless man, like a walk-in, and catching souls this way, right? Offering deals, or is it some sort of demon posing as a homeless man or something like that? Or is it some just guy that had somebody that looked similar to him, and I just had some weird guy come up to me? Either way, it was spiritual in nature to me, and it made me look at pursuing my music career differently, and it changed me in many ways that moment.
So what's the military connection here? I mean, what?
So the very next day after this, I had another experience that is, I don't like talking about because it sounds like I'm almost making this shit up. It's incredible. So the next day after this, I woke up with a mission. Like it was that sunrise, right? I woke up and I went to the park. No guitar, no nothing. And I'm telling you, I was not on drugs. I was clean for a while. I didn't do anything. Right. And I don't drink at all. So I don't drink. I have not drank pretty much my whole life. I just don't drink. So, but I wasn't doing any drugs at the time. Nothing was making me do this. I woke up and I was going through a spiritual awakening. I went right for that park the next morning, walking down the street, looking at the sunrise with my eyes rolling back. I remember I was like rolling my back, looking at my eyes back, looking at the sun as I'm walking down the street. And Michael, I was going through some spiritual thing. I started taking my clothes off. I don't deserve these clothes. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve these new sneakers. I started taking everything off. And as I'm walking to the park, I'm basically in my just undershorts, right? And I start walking around the Fibonacci circle in the park several times, right? And then I see, very similar to my near-death experience, that mirage in front of me, that watery wave of whatever you call it, plasma, maybe a watery substance, right? And I intuitively, the same way during my near-death experience, went into this substance. Now, when I went into this substance, it was like everything was shaking, like vibrating. I felt like I needed to call for help, but I couldn't get it out of my throat. I felt like if I didn't shake my head or scream, I was gonna die or get stuck like that forever. It was like I was trying to fight it, but it was so strong. I thought I was gonna die. I couldn't fight it, so I gave into it. And when I gave into that pressure, all of a sudden everything stopped and was serene. I opened my eyes because I had everything clenched tight. I opened my eyes, and in front of me, it looked like a bunch of wheat, like tall grass. I went to separate the tall grass so I can walk through it like a cornfield, and it separated, but it never touched my hand. I never felt anything on my hand, and it separated. When it separated, I was in the same park, but the park was empty. Nobody around. Nothing. It was the same exact park, but nothing there, no people, just the tables in the park, the objects that were bolted down in the park, and different tables and different things, but no physical people were in the park. So I'm like, what the F is this? Like, what is going on? So I start walking towards the back of the park where there's tables in the back of the park. This is on First and Golden in Long Beach. And which is ironically, after I'd done research on this years later, is on the 33rd parallel. The 33rd parallel, and the other 33rd parallel is Mount Hermon with Lebanon, where the Watchers came down in the Book of Enoch, right? So this is the 33rd parallel. It goes right through this park in Long Beach, right? I didn't know this, of course, at the time. So I walked down to the back of the park, and there's tables bolted down, right, with four chairs at each chairs at each table where people play dominoes and spades and cards, right? So I walk towards the back of the car where those tables are, and Michael, I see four beings at each table. Every seat is occupied at each table. Each one of these beings is identical looking. Now, the best way I could describe them, very pale faced, about 4 feet maybe, because they didn't stand up, they were sitting down. They were about 4 feet tall. They had a pronounced widow's peak, like a point that came down, like freaking Dracula. You know, like Dracula has that pronounced widow's peak. They had a pronounced widow's peak that came down, and plastered down looking hair, almost like it was a helmet, black. And there had this smile that never moved, like a fixed smile, like an evil fixed smile. And their cheekbones were high. Their eyes were deep set. They were larger than normal and oval. And their eyebrows almost looked like they were dotted, almost like a dotted type thing, and a pronounced widow's peak. And they were like nubs, or something right here, like little nubs. And they weren't looking at me. They were all sitting at the table. And I thought they were playing cards or doing something, but I walked up behind one, and it was holding this. And this is in 2001, before we had like all these different types of cell phones and stuff like that. He was holding this thin piece of glass. It looked like a thin, transparent, very thin, very, very thin. Do I have something to, like a playing card thin, like a playing card, but it was transparent, and he was holding it. I looked behind and looked into this playing card, and in the center of it was I don't know if it was like a diamond shape or something, but I looked into the center of it, and at first I was seeing, it was almost like it was connected to me. Connected to me telepathically, because I was visions in my head, and it was connected to my emotions and my nerves. Like I was feeling the trauma of these visions. And at first it was stuff about my life and who I was. And then all of a sudden I closed my eyes, and I something made me say this. It's not all about me. It's not all about me. And I said it several times, and I opened my eyes back up and looked back into the center of that playing card thing. And now I saw massive feathery reptiles being burned, and things falling from the sky and then battling each other while the world's burning. And then I saw humanity. And I've talked about this before. They were fighting each other over food and cataclysmic. I got PTSD from what I saw. It was a traumatic event that gave me PTSD, and I was trembling from this experience, trembling from it, right? And I literally heard someone calling my name, right? Calling my name Ralphie. My friend called me Ralphie. Right? And I snapped out of it, and I was in the park now with people around, children around, things like that. I felt like I was going to die. I literally grabbed a drink out of a child's hand and started downing it. And I'm, mind you, butt naked. I had stripped off my clothes when this happened prior, right? And I drank this drink and I wandered out of the park into the alleyways right behind there. I was huddling next to let me rewind. As I'm walking out of the park and going to the alleyway, I thought I was having an orgasm, but what I was having, I was pissing myself, but it felt like I was having an orgasm. It was like some Kundalini type thing going on. And I was actually urinating on myself all over, right? So I went into the back of the alleyway and I was huddling next to a garbage dumpster thing. And I had my arms around my knees and I was just rocking back and forth. I remember muddling to myself, it's not all about me. It's not all about me. And then finally, my friend James shows up. He's like, bro, I've been looking for you. You were supposed to meet me at the park in the morning. I've been looking for you. It's now a day and a half I lost in time. He was calling for me in the park. I think his calling for me was what snapped me out of that experience. Right? And it was now a day and a half time or so that I lost. And he wasn't in the park when I snapped out of it. He wasn't there. He had left the park, but he had been calling for me a day and a half before that in that park. I had lost a day and a half's time. And what I explained was, a couple of minutes. So I don't know where I was for that day and a half. I never left that park, according to me. Maybe it was another dimension of that park. But so when my friend James found me huddling there, and he's been looking for me, he's like, dude, the cops have been looking for you this whole time. Like, they've been looking for you. They've been coming for you everywhere. So I was like, oh shit, so I got nervous. He got me clothes. I got home. I got cleaned up. And they eventually, within a couple of hours, came and found me where I was. Now, I don't really like talking about this because there's some things you can actually prove about this experience, like from my courtroom stuff. So, but I don't really have any answers. What I could tell you is the cops came and got me. I was very, I was fighting with the police during my arrest. I did not want to get arrested. Right? What do they call the term when you,
resisting arrest?
Resisting arrest, right? So they got pretty violent with me and had hit me over the head and unconscious, right? I remember being brought to the Long Beach Police Department. They put me in a tank with other people, like a holding tank with all these other people. I got into a fight with a group of Mexican guys. They were trying to take my sneakers because you get put in there with, your street clothes at first. So they were trying to take stuff from me, and I had gotten into a fight with a group of Mexican guys. And the cops, instead of doing something to them, they came and hit me over the head with something. And next thing I know, had my two cops were holding me with my arms around their necks, and I was being dragged into my own cell. They threw me in my own cell, stripped me naked, and left me there. The next thing I remember, I was being brought on a transportation, like a jail bus. I thought I was being transported to the county jail, right? And I was in and out of consciousness as I was on this bus. I really don't like to talk. So as I was on this bus, I was in and out of consciousness. And the next thing I remember, I was at the boat docks of Long Beach. I was being loaded on the boat docks, shackled onto, and I remember, in and out of consciousness going towards Catalina Island that way. Now, the next thing I remember is now I'm in this room with no windows. It seemed like we were underground. Brick, cement walls. And I woke up with two nurses or women in nurse outfits arguing that my blood was coagulating and they couldn't take a blood sample. They were trying, and my head had been shaved. They were trying to take blood samples from me, but they said I was so dehydrated that it was coagulating. They couldn't get a blood sample from me. And they were arguing with each other, right? A guard walked in and he was armed. Right? Next thing I remember, I'm being loaded back on this bus, going back to the Long Beach Police Department. and I'm going to get arraigned now in front of the judge, and I'm telling the judge what I remember, and he's like, "Sir, listen, I don't know how much of what your story is true, but from what you're saying to me, I can tell you've been through some sort of experience." I was trying to tell him the cops hit me, they and blah blah blah, and he was like, he was supposed to put me back into jail because the charges were I pulled a knife on the cops when they were trying to arrest me, and I wouldn't give them my name, false identification. So those were the charges. He was supposed to remand me back to the county jail, but he ROR'd me. He called it release on my own recognizance, because he knew I went through some traumatic situation, he was saying, right? What's funny about that, the one thing that's funny about that is at the time, I didn't have a lot of money. My mom had sent me a gift from New York with these sneakers that she bought at like Walmart. They weren't like a name brand. They were literally called Court Classics. They were like tennis sneakers, and I was wearing them at the time in court, right? Those were the sneakers that those people were trying to take from me, right? So when I went to the judge, they had those sneakers back on me, and I went and told them that whole story. And before they released me, ROR'd me, they had to chain me. I was like shackled to other people, so they had to like come back and unshackle me from the other people and stuff. So like there was a African American gentleman sitting next to me, and he looked down at my sneakers. He goes, "Damn, bro, that was a court classic." He thought I was making everything up, telling me it was a court classic because my shoes said court classic. He was like, "Damn, bro, that really was a court classic." He thought I made all that stuff up to get out of jail. I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking to myself, you think I would say that to get out of jail? Jesus. But so, yeah, I don't really have some answers. I stopped talking about these experiences long ago.
All right. So, I mean, that experience with the police and being taken into the lockup and being abused in that way, all that kind of stemmed from this very strange incident where you saw these
very confusing
four
to hear,
beings, these four short beings with the widowed peak and all of that. And so, that kind of like raises this whole issue of asuras or the interdimensional realm, the asuras, the devas. And I know you talk about that. So, I mean, is that what was happening here? That you were exposed to some kind of demonic or, some kind of field, interdimensional field that just was, these 4-foot tall beings were part of that?
Yeah, I don't think they were demonic at all. They gave me a prophetic vision about the world and myself. And in Italian, we call these the folletto, the fairies, right? The folletto, the folletti, the lincetto. There's all these different kinds of them. In Slavic, they call them rusalki, and different types of rusalki, like the vajjanoi and different types. In Hindu, they have the asura and the devas and all different types of asura and devas, the maruts, all different types of plasma, light beings. And I do believe that these were a form of that, a form of folletto, a form of interdimensional creature. And sometimes these creatures can teach you lessons. Sometimes they can be devious and lead you in the forest by following lights and let you walk off a cliff. So I think there's an interdimensional aspect of crossing over to other dimensions and having to shed your clothing, because in ancient rites, when they would do the dances around the circles, they would have to be naked. And there would be all sorts of rites of being naked and being able to cross over into the circle, into the other dimension.
Okay, so there was some kind of interdimensional thing going on here where you went through all of that, and you're not consciously remembering everything that happened, just some.
No, yeah,
some of
bits and pieces. I think anybody that can say details of every second of it, and most likely it's being made up, because think about memories of yours. I mean, can you say like it's sometimes certain things are very cloudy and certain things can't be, you can't really describe correctly and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it gave me a prophetic vision, and it changed who I was. There's not a day that goes by that this doesn't come up in my thoughts. Right?
Okay,
go ahead.
So you had some experience there involving these interdimensional beings. Now you've also met some, I guess you would call them cosmic intelligence or feline beings, but Sekhmet being one of those. So you want to tell us about what happened there?
I call them the Fila, Fiela. So I've had telepathic visits throughout my whole life, especially when I do sun yoga. I've spoken for Swamiji Uma Sankar. He's the sun yogi, and I spoke at his Universal Peace Conference in India. And I've practiced sun yoga before, and I think that kind of was what I was doing that morning when I was looking up at the sun and rolling my eyes back and walking down the street. I think I was connecting literally to like the sun. So Sekhmet in ancient Egypt, she is the goddess of the solar storms. She brings the destructive and healing forces of the sun. Same with Pasht in ancient Egypt. And I believe that that word actually comes from the Pasha in Hindu, which is the coronal mass ejection, the loop that Varuna wields, you know, the god of the solar waters, right? So I do believe that these feline type beings most likely are from another time and space, and they can visit us interdimensionally, telepathically. And I've had visits throughout my whole life, and I've even seen one for a split second in this 3D reality. You know, so I don't know if they could be in this reality for very short periods of time, whether it's heavy for them or something like that. But yeah, I've had telepathic visits from them most of my life. I don't claim to say they're from Lyra or all this other stuff that people just repeat, you know, over and over again. But I do feel that they're a type of plasma, a type of light intelligence.
And they do look humanoid, but with lion heads.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. All right. Now you also,
as you see in this, see this rock. Can you not see the feline aspect of it in the top? Yeah. So I believe this is a you know, and they don't just call them Sekhmet. Sometimes they're in other religions. They're called different names, like Astaroth, you know, or something like Anath, Asherah. You know, various other ones were depicted sometimes with a lioness. This has to do with the roaring female aspects of the sun of the, and these objects, especially this one, this is 90 tons of red granite. Now, if it wasn't red granite, it wouldn't be so magical. So why is red granite so magical? And why is a dolmen so magical? Well, when you have a dolmen, first of all, it's made out of granite. Granite has high quantities of quartz crystal, which is piezoelectric, which means if it's rubbed or squeezed or compressed, it opens up an electric current. It opens up the cold plasma light, right? Another thing, it has magnetite in it, granite. So you have magnetite, magnetism, and electricity, piezoelectric properties in the quartz happening at the very same time with the stone. Now, a dolmen, when you're raising it off the ground, you have the negatively charged ground, the positively charged atmosphere. It's like pulling a guitar string off the fretboard so it can vibrate and resonate the cosmic rays that it's absorbing, right? So these red granites, like this one, this has an archaeoastronomy alignment on winter solstice morning, tomorrow morning, right? Winter solstice morning, the sunrise, so like it's a solar alignment. It rises right on the top of this stone. Right on the top, it rises, or sits right on the top of the head, just like they show Sekhmet with the sun on top of Sekhmet's head. You have a side profile of Sekhmet, like you see here, with the sun sitting on its head. Well, this happens on winter solstice morning, and there's a electron surge at dawn, right? So it's this. You bring the information. The sun is sending codes of creation, sustenance, evolution, and dissolution and rebirth. All of these codes are being sent, especially on winter solstice morning. So this archaeoastronomy alignment, this dolmen being raised off the ground like that, is literally broadcasting and amplifying the knowledge that it's pulling in from the sun, right? It's incredible, right?
Now, is this a natural formation, or did someone carve this and somehow place it there?
Well, that's the ultimate question right there. So at first they called this a glacial erratic, like somehow the ice age just plopped this there, right? So There are glacial erratics, but what's the odds of the ice? So because this granite's not from anywhere near the area, nowhere near this area. So you have the bottom. It's sitting on some quartzite slabs there, but the top of it's red rose granite, right? Beautiful red rose granite. The back of it looks like a tabletop dolmen. Completely changes its shape and its look. This side looks like, I mean, listen, you have the whole cheek line there. You have the upper ear, the eye, the nose, the mouth, and the back headdress of Sekhmet. So if you ask me, I think this side was carved as an effigy, sort of, and the other side was left alone because this is the ceremonial side. The other side literally falls off a cliff. There's a right there at the other side of it. There's a cliff right there. So this is the ceremonial side. Not to mention, John Burke wrote Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty, and he did a magnetometer reading. There's a 400 gamma magnetic anomaly coming out from underneath this dolmen. So not only is it here, but it's also on top of a magnetic anomaly. What's also interesting about this, and why I say it's amazing how it's opening up the light of the stone, is that these dolmens, a lot of time throughout the world, when they're made out of granite, they're built on spots where there's natural shocks and vibrations generated. So what this does is, when there's underground water beneath a dolmen that's made out of granite, that makes the little shocks and vibrations. It makes the quartz rub together within the granite, right? Naturally, which opens up the light of the stone, right? Literally opens up the light. So when you have underground water right in this spot. There's behind this where the cliff is, there's water, right? All underground water. Not to mention, I believe these dolmens are built on geomagnetic field lines that extend out into space, right? Really incredible. And you have a spot of electricity and magnetism happening here. And there's a ritual bowl that you posted in one of the pictures underneath this that people charge seeds in. I put my crystal skulls in. And on winter solstice morning, I charge a lot of the products that I make. I charge them on winter solstice morning at this location.
Well, we got here one of the crystals, the crystal skulls that you mentioned. So, what's your interest and what have you found or learned about crystal skulls?
Yeah, see, I also make copper products, right? Twisted copper products, and I do the carvings of crystal skulls and other carvings. So every shape has power, right? So when you carve something into the shape of a sentient human being, and especially when it's made out of crystals and quartz, different types of material, it's becomes like a memory bank for the cosmos. Like the quartz and the crystal, they're absorbing information that's coming down. They're absorbing it while it's being grown. The lattice structure is being grown. It's being imprinted with information. So it's very powerful when you charge this at winter solstice morning, especially in certain times of the year, where it's sending the new codes from the sun, the new rebirth of the sun of winter solstice. It's sending all the new codes for the coming, year. All the new. It's the time of the birth of the sun god, winter solstice. This is where the ancient rites were done to make sure there was good agriculture that comes in the coming seasons and all of this.
All right. Well, I want to now shift over to these UFOs you got on video, and so let's take a look at some of these. And you got 4 on a playlist. So you want to kind of walk us through? Do you want to anyone in particular you want to start with?
What's the oldest one? That was the first one. You could just start with the you know what? Take the first one, I guess, the one on the top first. Let's see which one that one is. So yeah, this is the first one. So let me give you the setting for this. This was about 2016 when this happened.
Okay.
And I was about to be guest on James Bartley's show, The Cosmic Switchboard. He's out in Australia, James Bartley. And 5 minutes before I was a guest on his show, I happened to look out the window and I see a group of 7 reddish. I know on the video it looks more white, but you'll see when it does vibrate and morph color. I saw these reddish fireballs outside my house, about 50 feet above my neighbor's house, and they were in formation. And then they started to move around. At the time I had a BlackBerry, the iPhone. So that's the moon, that picture, that right there. I went to show the moon compared to it. So I had the BlackBerry phone. So I ran outside with my BlackBerry, and by the time I come outside, the other ones moved away, and there was one that came down and let me videotape it. So go back to the video at the beginning, and you'll see. This is.
What do you want me to do? Go back to the beginning of this video?
Yeah. So this is when I go outside. Yep. And enlarge it if you can, please. Thank you. So this is the one plasma orb. Now watch, look at it, starts to morph and vibrate and change red and pulsate different colors. Look at that. See it?
Mm-hmm.
Right there. Did you see how it pulsated and morphed red?
Red and pulsated, yep.
Yeah, and I was videoing it for a while. I had like, goosebumps all over me. And then I show the moon, and then towards the end of the video, it literally beams right at me. It focuses right at me, and it morphs red and beams right at me. And if you go towards the end after all this, you'll see there's a point, and I'm even like, whoa! They're in the video. I think it's coming right here. I clipped it in one of the other videos. Yeah, coming right here, coming up in a second. I think it's right before this, actually. This is after it. Yeah, this is when it was fading out. It was right here. That's the moment. Go rewind a little bit right there. You'll see it comes down, and right here it morphs and beams right at me right after this. Right here. You'll see.
Okay, so it's a plasma orb.
Right there. Boom.
Saw it. Okay.
It morphs red and it beamed right at me. And this was a bad camera at the time.
So what is it? I mean, a plasma orb. So is it a consciousness? Is it a spacecraft? Or containing beams?
That's a good question. I think it could be coming from within the planet as well, right? It could be something very ancient that's always been a part of this planet. It could be coming from our magnetosphere, right? Directly sent from the sun, sent from the portal from the sun, right? And I could tell you, during the experience, I wasn't having a telepathic experience, but after that experience, I was more focused in my research. It gave all of a sudden I had a more direction of what I was working on, and the plasma, everything became more of a focus. And I think it imparted knowledge to me that I've been slowly awakening. I think I downloaded during that moment.
Okay, well, here's another one.
Yeah, this one was incredible because there's three. And this was over the Hudson River. Right here at the bottom of the screen, you see the mountain line. There's a mountain line there. You can see can you see where the mountain line is? Where I'm putting my arrow right here. I don't know if you can see that.
I can't see that. I just see three kind of like orb.
Yeah, look below the last one. You'll see there's a mountain line to see how far.
Yeah, I see that.
That's the mountain line. So that's showing you how far above the mountains it is, and the Hudson River is below the mountains. I turned it because when they were going out of the screen, now you see the mountain line all the way on the left, on the bottom left, because I turned the camera so I can get them all in. But there was three of them, and they were pulsating red like stars, as bright as stars, and they were moving around, and they were there for almost a half an hour. Incredible. And I can tell you that during the experience, like once again, I'm not gonna lie and say I was experiencing some symbiotic connection or anything like that. I felt alive. I felt like it was incredible. But afterwards, my knowledge changed. Both after these experiences, I had knowledge I didn't prior have. All of a sudden, I would be talking on a podcast and stuff would come out that I didn't know I knew.
Okay. So really these two plasma orb experiences you had, not that you communicated with the craft in any way, but afterwards you felt just increased knowledge and
Yeah.
awareness. So you probably got a download.
Yeah, and I have incredible dreams, very lucid dreams. I fly in my dreams. Like I'm flying around and traveling and doing certain things, and I've understood certain things about dream times that I'll share with you. In my Italian lineage, we call this the benindante and the malandante, the good walkers and the bad walkers. All of us, when we go and sleep at night, this is who we really are. This is our spiritual self. And there's two things that we get polarized in life when we go to sleep. Most people, this is unknowingly. They don't realize this is transpiring unknowingly. When we go to sleep at night, we are traveling and we're doing one of two things. We're either going into the collective consciousness to help cleanse the collective consciousness of our families and our local communities and our friends, or we're traveling into the dreamscape to poach from the collective consciousness. People that want to take abilities and energy and things from other people so they can get more riches and gains on this materialistic realm, right? So there's many people that travel at dream time unknowingly. They're greedy. They want more powers. They have talents that they don't want to work for. They want talents that and gifts that they don't want to have to work for. So they poach them from the people that are actually out there that are talented and creative and all of this. So they go into their dream time unknowingly, and they're literally poaching from the collective consciousness, right? To give themselves more riches, more gains on this material realm. Then you have people that go to sleep at night and they're going to help cleanse the collective consciousness of their communities and their friends, right? And then usually around the time you're 40 years old, the people that are chose for to do this on a much larger scale, they're contacted in some way during dream time, and they have to make a choice. They're either going to work for the good of the collective consciousness, or they're going to become that other and poach from the collective consciousness. And it might make you a superstar and might make you rich in some aspects if you poach from it, but there's consequences. And we call this the Ember Days War in Italian mysticism, the strega, the witches and the shaman of Italy. They call these the Ember Days Wars, right? Between the Manandante and the Benindante. And in fact, there's a book by Carlo Ginzburg called The Night Battles by Professor Carlo Ginzburg that discusses some of the courtroom testimonies during the Holy Inquisition about some of these people. And a lot of them that were experiencing this were born in the caul.
So you want to now maybe explain a little bit about the sun being a ball of solar plasma, and what is the connection between that and kind of like the UFO phenomenon?
Great. I love to talk about this because when I talk about experiences, I felt like I'm being portrayed as a lunatic. So this is great. When we get to talk about this, it's really incredible. What we're taught in school is archaic. The sun is not a hydrogen gas sphere. It's a plasma sphere, a plasma star, right? At 99.8 something percent in its plasma state, all suns and stars are plasma stars, right? And they're streaming rivers of plasma. Now, all these suns and stars that are streaming these rivers of plasma, they form a confluence of one big celestial ocean. And this celestial ocean is talked about in all of mythology, all of religions, from having to give the Grim Reaper a coin to cross the river Styx to the Pharaoh Unis crossing over into the celestial waters in the pyramid texts, right? So there, it's all over, right? So when you have a coronal mass ejection, right? The sun and its powerful magnetic field lines, they are constantly in motion. These magnetic field lines can become tangled by the convection of plasma and the differential rotation of the sun. Now, when that happens, they form these massive loops or bubbles that inject the magnetic material into space. These loops is the Ankh of Egypt. It's the Pasha of Hindu, right? So when you see an Ankh, this is the Ankh, right? The loop of the Ankh. Right. And that's the biggest solar symbol of and powerful symbol of the ancient world, the 18th dynasty. You see the arms of the sun handing down a loop to its solar king, Akhenaten. That can't be a coincidence. Right. These are universal structures and laws that form that the shaman of the ancient world intuitively understood and knew about. right? They didn't need advanced, telescopes and all of this stuff to detect it. They intuitively tapped into the universal structures and that form to distribute the light throughout the universe. And our universe is 99.99% of the mass of it is plasma. It's the lifeblood of the universe. It's stringing together galaxies and nebulas. When you see a nebula, that's literally millions of light years of plasma. In Egypt, they talk about a boat of millions of years. Well, that could be a nebula, right? Literally, plasma is measured on a galactic scale in millions of light years. It's millions of years, millions of degrees Kelvin, right? It is a boat of millions of years. It's everything you see in the universe. All the celestial lights are plasma, right? And they are the gods of the ancient world. And the attendants of the gods are the structures that form in the plasma to distribute the light. These are the children and the attendants of the gods, the fairies, the nymphs, all species of plasma, right? You have, like in Hindu, you have Garuda, like their magnetosphere protecting the planetary systems. The Naga are the solar emissions trying to penetrate. And the Garuda even eats the Naga sometime. And the Naga and the Garuda talk about they're from the same origins. They're from the sun, the same origins, right? And you have all of that universal struggle, like between Vitra and Indra, or between Tiamat and Marduk, or Bel and the dragon, Archangel Michael and the dragon, is showing the dynamic, ferocious battle between the sun and the magnetosphere. And when Indra pierces the magnetosphere, that Vajra, that is the thunderbolt coronal mass ejection that's piercing the night side of the magnetotail, the dragon that stretches out and releases the waters, which is the auroras on the planet. And that is groundbreaking.
So, I mean, this image I have here is this kind of like a fair illustration of this kind of cosmic struggle between plasma and the magnetosphere of the Earth?
Exactly, Michael. So you see right here the magnetic field lines, which are the Naga, the snakes coming through the celestial waters, right? And they are powerful magnetic field lines, and the solar wind that's trying to penetrate the magnetosphere. And you can see right here on the night side of the magnetosphere, it forms into a teardrop or cypress tree shape. And this is described in so much, even the golden tablets of Orpheus from sites like the Petalia and Thuri, where they talk about the afterlife instructions, literally telling the light body to go to the night side of the magnetosphere and avoid the lake of Lethe, the lake of oblivion, which sends you scattered into the auroras, and instead to drink from the lake of Mnemosyne, the lake of memory, where you remember your divine origins and snap back into the sun during magnetic reconnection. Because when you have a coronal mass ejection, some of those charged particles penetrate and pierce into the night side of the magnetosphere, into the magnetotail, and they become all chaos. It's ruled by chaos gods, and that's how the auroras are generated. But some of those particles, the magnetic field lines, some of those magnetic field lines, they snap back all the way back to the sun from our magnetosphere. It's called magnetic reconnection, and that is the solar barge, the solar boat, where the pharaoh is literally guided to the night side of the magnetosphere, where he rides the magnetic field lines that are snapped back into the sun. Incredible. This is what my book is about that I'm writing.
Okay, well, let's bring it to a close. So do you want to tell people about your website and any upcoming events that you're involved in?
Yeah, I'm always guests on different radio shows, and I do my own readings. I make my own objects like this, copper coils wrapped around. Yep, see, like that, copper coils wrapped around gemstones and different types. I make objects to help get you out of the fog. And when you twist copper clockwise, it's like wringing a sponge out. You're getting rid of all the old electrons, and you're making an explosion of fresh electrons with the twist. And then you make it into a coil or a circle, so it has a constant explosion of fresh electrons. And when you wrap those coils around piezoelectric material like quartz, it's literally essentially squeezing the quartz, opening up the light of the stone, right? Literally an inner light activator. Really cool, right? I also have my own crystal skulls and my own carvings and everything like that. I do readings, and I make devices to help bring people out of the fog, protect them from EMF protection rays, and all sorts of things like that. So you guys can find me at the mysticalspiralstore.com. You can find me at patreon.com/the mystical spiral. I'm on Substack, Rock Castaldo, and I have my Space Water podcast on YouTube.
Oh, wonderful, Ralph. It's great to meet you, get to learn about your experiences and some of the work you've been doing. And I wish you all the best in the coming new year. Any kind of predictions you want to leave my audience with for 2026?
Yeah, and we're finishing on 2:22 p.m. right now here. That's perfect. Yes, everybody, you need to connect back to nature, and creativity is the most important. Your authenticity is the most important. Nowadays, everybody seems to need cheerleaders. Everybody has to agree with everybody else. You can have your own opinion. You can be creative and authentic, and use your creativity to activate your free will. Most things in this reality is the illusion of free will. You go to watch a movie. Are you really watching a movie you want to watch, or you're choosing from someone else's programming? Same thing when you go to eat. You're choosing from someone else's menu. But when you're creative, when you're using your mind and your ultimate creative potential, that's your free will, right? And you can explore that in so many different ways. I urge people to connect back to nature, connect back to people, put your phone down for a little while after you watch Dr. Sala, and go back into nature.
Okay, well, thank you, Ralph, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Good. I hope you enjoy it. Take care. Spiral out.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Sala. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Sala. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.